how I gotta ride or die.
So guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have just picked up Mark IV Golf Diesel. Now, what a machine. I will say first off, these things, when I was growing up, were the absolute one to have. This diesel or the GTI, there were so many of them out there, but they're getting far and few between at the moment. This one though was picked up for £350 and it's currently got 209,000 miles on. This is a daily driver for the owner, and what I want to do in today's video is explain maybe the latter end of daily drivers that are comfy, easy to get into, cheap to repair if needs be, and again, cheap to run. Now, we recently did a Mercedes on the channel with 100,000 miles on it. It was financed by the owner, and he said basically, I do tons of miles, so I wanted to get something with a little bit of mileage on finance with a warranty. But I said to him, you could have got something cheaper, you could have gone the other way, and that's what we've got today. So, because we've recently had that video on the channel, I wanted to go to the other side of proceedings. So, if you only had a tight budget, didn't want to get something on finance, this is probably the way to go. Now, this is a diesel. It's about 110, 120 horsepower from the factory, from the diesel engine. This has had a bit of fettling, exhaust system. It's had some modifications, as you can see, coilovers, rotiform wheels on there, which absolutely sets off and suits these Mark IV Golfs. I feel like these have aged in such a good way. This being an 02 plate, the owner has actually done, in his ownership, he's had it about 2 years, he's actually done 70,000 miles in it, and that's why also I wanted to get today's car, because the owner has actually done the mileage and he's fixed a few things. It's had a gearbox here and there, it's had a drive shaft because of the lowering, but he's saying all in all, for the money he's put into it, there is no better car out there to do its job. He was doing 60, 70, 80 miles a day in this car at one point, and he said honestly, it's comfy, it cruises, it's got cruise control, it still looks the part, they still look good, considering, again, this is a £350 car, which unfortunately today, I don't think you're probably going to be able to get in the market. The market is very, very hot for stuff like this at the moment. I still feel cars are well overpriced for what they should be, and this is a prime example. Something like this is still going to be way more than 350 quid these days, but if you are after one, they could be still out there. Now, it will of course come with a few bits and bobs. Mileage does mean that there will be issues, but nothing crazy issues. I mean, if you're paying this much for a car and you're doing that many miles, stuff is of course going to arise in your ownership. Just servicing, keeping it as it should be. Again, mileage does still mean you need to keep up on the servicing, especially on a car like this. I feel like if you keep servicing it, it will be able to take even more mileage, double the mileage. And I'm not saying that 209,000 miles is actually insane miles, because I've driven and been around cars, especially Mark IV Golfs, with way more mileage than that. But this is something pretty simple to get out there. You could probably find one of these in the market today for not loads of money, and I feel like you are going to probably get a pretty good product if you are buying the right one. Now, of course, as I go back to sort of issues and stuff, if you are after one of these, little bits of rust here and there, but nothing that you wouldn't probably know about if you were not looking these up in the first place. Tons of room in these though, and you'll probably know if you've ever had a Golf from this era. They are still built incredibly well, and this is why. 209,000 miles, factory seats, and a tiny bit of wear on the driver's seat. Now, I feel like if these were cloth, they would be a lot more worn than they are, but other than that bit of wear on the driver's seat, there is not a lot of wear on the actual steering wheel. The passenger seat looks, although a few cracks in it, still absolutely fine. Door cards are still in really good condition. I just think out there in the market these days, if you're after something cheaper, because of course fuel's gone up, cars have gone up, everything has gone up in price, and you want just a cheap daily driver, this could be one of the best things out there. But we will go out, we will see what this thing is like on the road at 200,000+ miles, see what it's like compared to the other high mileage cars we have done in the last couple of weeks. So the drive, what's it like to drive A Mark IV Golf this generation of 2002 with 209,000 miles on it. Now, I will say again, I don't think that's mega mileage. I've seen them, I've been around them, I've driven them with more miles, so I know full well what these are capable of, these cars. It's always good to revisit a car like this, especially in the economic climate we're in at the moment. Diesel's expensive, petrol's expensive, cars are silly expensive at the moment, you know, way more than they should be. So you might be after something like this, and this is why I want to bring stuff like this to the channel. Now, we did recently have a financed Mercedes with 100,000 miles on it. It sort of said in the video, like, you know, the migration from going from a cheap daily driver with mileage on it to put mileage on it is great, but financing a maybe newer car with slightly higher miles on it to put higher miles on it is both ends of the spectrum, really. But today we're actually driving the opposite end of the spectrum. That's why I wanted to grab this car more than anything. Now, we are retaining, before I put my foot down, 64 mpg we're doing right now. Now, this is the 110 brake horsepower that we've come out of the factory with, claiming around 150, 160 now because of mapping, straight pipes, various other modifications that is currently on the vehicle. It does also have an exhaust system on it, one with nothing there, let's say. But that makes for a bit more of an exciting daily drive, in my opinion. Doesn't drone though, because these diesels, I think, are quite quiet from factory, and they are quite muted through their turbocharger. Nice little third gear pull there. Actually, on the motorway, you'll really feel that torque low down. You know, you're 50, 60, 70 mile an hour if you're trying to cruise, or you're trying to actually push through in traffic maybe, or you're trying to get to your destination as you wish. Even the 5-speed box, the ratios just seem just right for cruising, and especially motorways, which is where you'll probably see this, and this car especially. The owner has done 70,000 miles in this car. Yes, he's been through some drive shafts, a gearbox here and there, mainly because of the lowering and the modifications, and, you know, enjoying it, putting your foot down when you fancy to let that torque figure really work in your favour. 350 quid for a running and driving, very economical, comfortable car is unheard of in today's market, in my opinion. You will not get, or I believe you will not get, something like this in this current climate, which is a huge shame, because cars like this were just the backbone of getting you to a destination with not crazy overheads, no crazy finance figures. Cars like this were what it was all about, in my opinion, and unfortunately, you know, today you can't really get that. But I'm so glad that we're visiting something like this, especially for the guys out there that aren't after something, you know, financed and silly, after powerful cars, just something that's nice, laid back, comfortable, easy to drive, that's doing, even when we're going to put our foot down, is still retaining 40 mpg when you're putting your foot down. Is hilarious figures, really. But the drive, what's it like? Well, this is on coilovers and a set of really cool Rotiform wheels. It isn't actually too uncomfortable, really. I think that's mainly down to how well these Golfs are cushioned inside. At 200,000 miles, these seats are still in such good condition. They're still comfy, they've still got bolsters, and there's no crazy bolster wear either. I've noticed that in a lot of leather-clad VW products from this generation with mileage on it. The cloth ones will disintegrate a little bit quicker, I feel, but this one, with the factory leather interior and a factory leather steering wheel, it doesn't look that aged, if I'm honest. I feel like it's actually aged very well. Yeah, you'll get a couple of cracks in the leather and stuff, but no crazy wear, not like I've seen in previous cars with a quarter of the mileage. And that's a true testament to the Mark IV Golf, I think. I grew up around the era of these GTIs and the diesels, hot diesels, being cheap, and, you know, you could get into one with not loads of money. And yes, you could still do that these days, but they are far and few between for a nice one. Now, if you gloss past the mileage on this, I believe this is a nice one, but yes, I will point out you will get rust in silly areas, not on frame or anything like that, no crazy MOT failing rust, but mainly on the arches. It seems to be a common thing from this era of Golf. Mark 5 being the same sort of era generation of this, where, you know, years on they were still going on the front arches and weirdly on the boot. Mark 5 is around the badge. This one is, you know, and the Mark 4 especially seem to be along where the rear window sits on that boot lid. But I have been reassured that the owner has found and bought brand new panels for this car, so he will be updating, you know, with a little bit of a GTI look in the not so distant future, probably next summer. But these items are readily available still. The boot's still readily available, so are the wings. So if you do find one with slight rust, you know, on the surface of arches, boot, various bits and bobs like that, you can find bits very, very easily. And I think this is a car for everyone. There is enough space in here. I still think they're pretty cool for what they are. And if you're getting into one for no money, with good mileage on it, that's had a service history, that's, you know, running and driving as this one is, and still gets hunkers down and gets going like that, what a hell of a daily. What a hell of a daily. And the best bit is, and if you've waited to this point in the video, the owner of this car also owns the Vectra V6 that we had on the channel not so long ago. So that's the 2-car driveway he has at the moment. This is the daily runabout, doing good MPG, comfy, easy to drive. And he also has that awesome Vectra, the 2.5 up front. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. What do you think? Would you finance a newer, slightly higher mileage car like the Mercedes that we had on the channel with 100,000 miles on it? Or would you go for a 200, 300, 400 plus 1,000 mile VW, Audi, maybe something like that from this generation that's cheap to get into, cheap to run, pretty reliable, but cheap to fix if needs be? What would you do? But let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you all on the next one.
Ride or die.